Hello everyone, this is Julia. Thank you so much for joining me on my craft room adventures. Today, I have a scene card to share with you that is for the current Lawnfawnatics challenge, which is a sketch challenge for basically 4 squares in the upper third of the card. So this is what I came up with. I stamped out all of the images from the DandyDay stamp set by Lawn Fawn onto Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I'm just coloring them in using Copic markers. For the centers of the dandelions, I'm using Y21 and Y11, and for my greens, I'm using YG67, YG63, and YG61. I'm not doing 2 layers because there really is no point. There's such a tiny space, so 1 layer is totally fine. For the mice, just like I usually do for critters like that, I'm using E50 markers. I'm going in with my darkest shade, the E55, and blending that out with E53 and E51. Going back in with the E55, E53, E51, and then blending out everything with the E50. I'm also giving a little bit of shade to the tummies of the mice with the E50, just with a few flicks so that it's not stark white, but also not the same color as the body. Here I'm just blending that out with the E51 just to get a nice blend. I did make a bit of a mistake on that mouse because I added the shadow on the wrong side for what I wanted. So I just went in with the blender pen to take some of the pigment away and then shade it as usual. Again with the E51, and I'm also using the E51 as the darkest shade on the baby mouse that one of the other mice is holding, just to separate the baby from the mama. Blending everything together with the E50. And now I'm just using the E55 to color in the noses. And I'm still using the little blush trick. I still really enjoy it, it's working well. Using a Q-tip, just putting some blush on the cheeks and also a little bit of pink blush to the insides of the ears. I used the Grassy Borders die just to get a panel of grass, and I'm ink blending that with peeled paint and Shabby shutters. And to give it a little bit of more a warm green tone, I will also be adding a little bit of Mowed lawn at the end over top, which gives it just a nice grass green shade. Here we go with the Mowed lawn. And for some added interest, I'm just adding some splatters of the Mowed lawn and peeled paint. For my background, I just wanted a sky, so I'm using Tumbled glass and Salty Ocean Distress ink. Just blending the colors back and forth because I will be adding some stamped clouds on top, so I didn't need to use a stencil or anything. I unfortunately forgot to record this, but I used the Morning Mist Versafine Clair ink to stamp some of the dandelion pieces, and I added the Wow clear sparkle embossing powder over top. And here I'm just heating it. I usually heat glitter embossing powder first from the back so that it's sort of melted, just so that the embossing gun doesn't blow all the glitter away. Now I'm adding the stamped clouds, and off camera I also die cut 3 layers of the Foursquare Backdrop in the portrait version. I'm just adding the grassy panel behind one of the layers, and then adding the other 2 over top. Or on the back really, because I wanted the grassy panel to be behind the first layer so that it has a little bit of dimension. I was just messing around with some glue, and I realized that the glue really does stain my craft mat when I let it dry. So I'm trying to just, you know, have a baby wipe on hand whenever I do spill, because I'm kind of a messy crafter. And there we go, that's our frame for our card. I'm just using some liquid glue to add it to the background, and I also added the background to an A2 size card base off camera, just so that that is already done, because I always find it's easiest to add it to a card base while the card is still flat, so you can really press it down. Just adding an acrylic block as a weight. I'm also adding some sparkle embossing powder to the centers of the dandelions, so I'm just using the Versa marker to add the ink, and I'm just dipping them into the embossing powder. And just like I did before, I will heat them from the back just to not lose most of the embossing powder. And here you can see the glitter, how it shines. It's just really, really pretty. It's such a pretty embossing powder. Now it's time to stamp part of my sentiment, which is, I think, your. I stamped the full sentiment, which is, I think, your dandy, but I will be cutting the dandy off because I will be using the Oliver stitched ABCs for that. And I will also be stamping the second part of that sentiment, which is in parentheses, and I'm not lying, which I think is just so funny. And I'm just using black licorice cardstock by Lawn Fawn, and I'm heat embossing it with Wow embossing powder in Opaque Bright and Superfine. Just using the embossing back, the embossing body. I accidentally messed it up the first time. It didn't stamp all the way, so I just used the back. And I'm not lying. I love that one. Just using my heat tool that was off to the side already, nice heating up. I did ink blend a panel that was just the same as the background in Tumbled Glass and Salty Ocean, and I just used these stitched Oliver's ABCs to cut it out of that panel, and also out of some white fun foam. And now I'm just using some liquid glue to layer them because I did want a lot of dimension on those letters. Now I'm just using some liquid glue to add some elements to my critters, just to make sure that they stay where they should. I always think it's nice to glue them together before taking them to the card. Yeah, my mouse went flying. I'm just adding this one. This little one is actually from the really high 5 stamp set, but I wanted to add another mouse that was flying. Now it's time to add the letters. I just made sure to line it up so that it would be in the middle, and I'm just using a cutting mat that is magnetic by We Are Memory Keepers, and I use a T-square ruler to make sure that is straight. And now I'm just using the ruler to just push the letters up against it so that I know that the top edge will be straight. I started with the first letter, then the last letter, then the one in the middle, so that I have the same kind of distance. I'm adding the A, and maybe you can already see it because I didn't see it while I adhered it, but I added the N wrong because the darker blue ink is on the bottom. That's when I realized, but luckily I could just peel it up and stick it down the other way. No harm done. And now I'm just adding in the last letter right in between there. I accidentally moved the ruler because my metal tweezers actually got stuck to the magnet that I was using, but I just used the T-square ruler to line them up again. I added some foam tape to the little sentiment strips. I cut them down with my guillotine trimmer, added some foam tapes, foam squares to the back, and now I'm just figuring out the best placement for them. I think you're dandy and I'm not lying. I just love that one. There we go. Now all that's left to do is add my little critters to the scene. I added foam tape off camera to the backs. Here he needed a little bit more backing because the grassy hill is a bit up off the background. And I also will add 2 butterflies that I colored for another card, just to bring in a little bit more color. And those butterflies are from the Butterfly Kisses stamp set by Lawn Fawn. And that finishes up my card for today. I really love the pretty sparkle of the glitter embossing powder, and the stitched Oliver ABCs are just, I love them. This is my first time using them, so I'm glad I finally used them on a card. I really hope that wherever you are, you're staying safe and healthy. Thank you so much for watching. I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel for more crafty videos. Have a wonderful day. Bye!